You're standing in a store, holding something you really want. Something you've been thinking about for weeks. You can afford it. The money is there, but your hand is shaking. Your heart is racing, and suddenly you're 8 years old again. Watching your mum put groceries back at the checkout. Watching your dad's face when the bills came. Watching everyone pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. So you put it back. You walk out with nothing, and you tell yourself you didn't really need it anyway. But that's a lie. The truth is, you're scared. Scared in a way that has nothing to do with your bank account, and everything to do with a wound you didn't even know you had. This is money trauma. And if you grew up poor, it's been quietly controlling your life for years. It's why you can't spend without guilt. Why you can't save without fear. Why you work yourself to exhaustion but never feel secure. And why no amount of success ever makes you feel safe. Because childhood poverty doesn't just affect your wallet. It rewires your brain. It changes how you see money, how you see yourself, how you see the world. And most people never realize it's happening. They just think they're being careful, being smart, being responsible. But there's a difference between caution and trauma. And today, we're going to decode it, point by point, so you can finally understand why money feels the way it does. And maybe, just maybe, start to heal. Number one, you check your bank balance obsessively, but it never makes you feel better. You know the number. You checked it this morning, maybe an hour ago, but you're checking again, just to be sure, just to make sure nothing disappeared. And even when the number is good, even when you have savings, even when you're doing better than ever, you don't feel relief. You feel dread, because your brain isn't looking at what's there. It's calculating how fast it could be gone. One emergency, one bad month, one mistake, and you'd be right back where you started. This is scarcity mindset. And it's not about how much money you actually have. It's about how your brain learned to see money when you were young. When you grow up poor, your nervous system develops a heightened sensitivity to resources. Your brain becomes hyper-aware of what's missing, what could go wrong, what you might lose. Psychologists call this threat-based perception. And it doesn't turn off just because your circumstances improve. Your adult brain has stability, but your childhood brain is still running the show, still scanning for danger, still waiting for the floor to drop out. So you check your balance again and again, not because it helps, but because your brain is trying to control the uncontrollable, trying to prevent a disaster that's already happened, just in the past. Number two, you either can't spend money on yourself or you can't stop spending. Here's where it gets complicated, because money trauma doesn't look the same for everyone. Some people hoard every dollar like it's the last one on earth, and some people burn through money the second they get it. And both are responses to the same childhood wound. If you can't spend, you know the feeling. You want something small, a coffee, a book, a shirt that actually fits. You can afford it, but the guilt is crushing. Your brain screams that it's wasteful, irresponsible, dangerous. So you say no to yourself, over and over. You wear clothes until they're falling apart. You skip meals to save money. You deny yourself tiny joys because spending feels like betrayal. Betrayal of the version of you that had nothing. This is called deprivation reinforcement. You survived by going without, and now your brain believes that's the only way to stay safe. But there's another side. The people who can't hold on to money, who spend impulsively, who buy things they don't need and regret it later, and people judge them, call them reckless, irresponsible. But here's what they don't understand. When you grow up poor, you learn that money doesn't stay. It always disappears. Someone gets sick, something breaks, an emergency happens. So your brain learns a brutal lesson. Money is temporary. Security is an illusion. And if you're going to lose it anyway, you might as well enjoy it now. Psychologists call this present focus coping. It's not about being bad with money. It's about a brain that never learned to trust the future. And underneath both extremes, there's the same belief that you don't deserve to have money, that having it is dangerous, that wanting it is shameful. So whether you hoard or spend, you're running from the same fear. The fear that money will hurt you. Again. Number 3, you feel deep shame about wanting things. You see something you like online, a jacket, a gadget, a trip somewhere warm, and for half a second, you let yourself imagine it. Then the guilt slams into you. Who do you think you are? That's too expensive. You don't need that. What if you need that money later? So you close the tab. You tell yourself you're being mature, practical, smart. But really, you're punishing yourself. Because when you were a kid, wanting things was painful. You wanted the sneakers everyone else had. You wanted the birthday party. You wanted to not be different. But asking meant seeing your parents' faces, the exhaustion, the stress, the quiet shame of saying we can't afford it. So you learned to stop asking. You learned that wanting makes you a burden, that needing things makes you selfish, that the safest thing to do is want nothing at all. This is called learned self-denial, and it doesn't fade when you grow up. You carry it into adulthood, into every store, every decision, every moment you talk yourself out of something you actually want. Not because you can't afford it, but because you still don't believe you're allowed to have it. Your brain still associates desire with disappointment, with being too much, with making someone you love feel like they failed. So you shrink your wants. You make yourself smaller. You convince yourself you're fine with less. But you're not fine. You're just scared. Scared that wanting will hurt, the way it always did. Number 4, you can't stop working because rest feels like failure. You haven't taken a real day off in months, maybe years. Every weekend, you're doing something productive. Every vacation, you're checking emails. Every quiet moment, you're planning the next move. Because stopping feels dangerous, like you're falling behind, like you're letting your guard down. And if you let your guard down, everything falls apart. This is survival mode, and it started in childhood. You watched your parents work themselves to the bone. Multiple jobs, no sleep, no rest. Just constant, grinding effort to keep the lights on. And you learned that survival requires vigilance. That if you're not moving forward, you're sliding backward. So now, even when you're stable, even when you're doing well, you can't stop. You say yes to everything. You take every shift. You pile on extra work because saying no feels reckless. Psychologists call this hypervigilance. Your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight, always alert, always scanning, always convinced that disaster is one mistake away. And the cruelest part? You build the life you dreamed of. You achieve financial stability. You create security. But you can't enjoy it because your body is still living in the past, still bracing for the next crisis, still running from a poverty that no longer exists, except in your nervous system. Number 5, you judge other people for how they spend money. Your friend buys something expensive. New phone, designer shoes, a spontaneous trip, and you feel it immediately. That tight, uncomfortable feeling in your chest. Judgment. Why would they waste money like that? Don't they know they should be saving? What if something happens? You don't say it out loud, but you think it. You question their choices. You wonder if they're being careless, and you create distance because their ease around money makes you uncomfortable. It reminds you that you can't relax the same way, and that feels like a personal failure. This is called projection. When you can't give yourself permission to enjoy money, you resent people who can. You hold them to the same harsh standard you hold yourself to. Because if they're allowed to spend freely, then maybe your fear isn't normal. Maybe you're the one who's stuck, and that's too painful to accept. So instead you judge, you criticize, you make their choices about responsibility when really it's about your wound. Because their freedom highlights your cage. And that cage was built in childhood, when spending meant danger, when wanting meant disappointment, when money meant stress, not joy. And until you heal that, everyone else's relationship with money will feel threatening. Number 6, you don't believe good things will last. You get a raise, a bonus, a promotion, and for a moment you feel relief, maybe even pride. Then the fear rushes in. What if they take it back? What if I mess up? What if this is temporary? You can't celebrate. You can't trust it. Because when you grew up poor, good things didn't last. The moment things got better, something went wrong. A car broke down, someone got sick, a surprise bill appeared, and you learned that hope is dangerous, that stability is fragile, that the universe doesn't let you keep good things. So now, even when life is good, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the moment it all falls apart. And that belief shapes everything. You don't invest in opportunities because they might not work out. You don't take risks because you can't afford to lose. You don't let yourself dream because dreaming feels like asking to be hurt. This is learned helplessness. And it's one of the deepest scars of poverty. Because it's not just about money anymore. It's about your entire sense of possibility. You stop believing you can have good things. You stop believing you deserve them. And when you stop believing, you stop trying. You settle. You stay small. You build a life that's safe but suffocating. Not because you're incapable, but because you're terrified of wanting something and losing it. The way you lost things before. Number 7, you hide your financial reality from everyone. Someone asks what you paid for something, or how much you make, or if you're doing okay financially, and you freeze. You deflect. You joke. You change the subject as fast as possible. Because talking about money feels exposing, like you're revealing something shameful, something that defines your worth. When you grew up poor, money wasn't neutral. It was status. It was proof of whether you mattered. And not having it meant you were less than. So you learned to hide it, to never let anyone see the truth. Because being seen meant being judged, and judgment meant shame. Now, even as an adult, even when you're doing well, the instinct remains. You downplay your success so people don't think you're bragging. You hide your struggles so people don't think you're failing. You keep your financial life locked away because vulnerability feels like weakness. But here's what that does. It keeps you isolated. It keeps you from getting help when you need it. It keeps you from connecting with people who might understand. And it keeps the shame alive. Because shame grows in silence. And as long as you're hiding, you're still that kid. Still protecting yourself from a danger that isn't real anymore. So what do? How do you heal money trauma when it's woven into every part of your life? Here's the truth. You don't fix it overnight. You don't just decide to be different and wake up healed. Healing money trauma is a process. And it starts with awareness. First, you have to see it. You have to stop telling yourself you're just being responsible. Stop judging yourself for the fear. Stop pretending it's normal to live like this. You name it. This is money trauma. This is a wound from childhood. This is my nervous system trying to protect me from a danger that's no longer here. And just naming it takes away some of its power. Second, you separate past from present. You teach your brain the difference. You look at your bank account and say out loud, I am safe right now. You buy something small and sit with the guilt instead of running from it. You practice spending without shame, saving without fear, resting without panic. You show your nervous system through action that the rules have changed. Third, you challenge the beliefs. The belief that wanting makes you selfish. The belief that spending is dangerous. The belief that good things don't last. You write them down. You ask yourself, is this true right now? Or is this an echo from the past? And slowly, you start to rewrite the story. Not with logic, but with lived experience. Fourth, you talk about it with a therapist, a friend, someone who gets it. Because money trauma thrives in silence. It grows in the dark. And the moment you speak it out loud, you realize you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not bad with money. You're just carrying weight you were never meant to carry. And you can put it down, not all at once, but step by step. Here's what I need you to understand. Childhood poverty doesn't just limit your resources. It limits your sense of what's possible. It teaches you that safety is an illusion, that wanting is dangerous, that you're always one mistake away from losing everything. And until you heal that wound, no amount of money will make you feel secure. No amount of success will make you feel worthy. No promotion, no savings account, no achievement will silence the fear, because the fear isn't about money. It's about survival, and survival is exhausting. But here's the good news. You survived. And now you get to do something your childhood self never could. You get to choose safety, not because the world is safe, but because you are capable. You get to choose rest, not because you've earned it, but because you're human. You get to choose joy, not because you deserve it more than anyone else, but because you deserve it as much as anyone else. And that shift, that tiny shift in belief, changes everything. So start small. Buy yourself something without justifying it. Take a day off without guilt. Celebrate a win without waiting for the collapse. Let yourself want something and remind yourself every single day that you are not that child anymore. You have power now. You have choices, and you are safe. If this video made you feel seen, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more psychology that actually makes sense of your life, hit subscribe. Because understanding yourself isn't just interesting. It's the first step to being free.